Welcome back to the Rundown Lab, where we break down and fact check the biggest health podcasts. We know your time is valuable, but when you can, we always recommend catching the full episode. Links are in the description. Thomas DeLauer's 2026 supplement list. What if I told you that one of the most popular supplement videos making the rounds right now contains a fundamental biology error that most viewers will never catch, but also gets a surprising amount right? That's exactly what we found when we put this episode under the microscope. Today we're fact-checking Thomas DeLauer's video, "If I had to start over, this is my 2026 supplement list." DeLauer is one of the most watched health creators online, and in this episode, he walks through his personal supplement protocol, covering everything from amino acids and sleep support to metabolic health compounds. We identified 35 distinct scientific claims, and I have to say, the results were more nuanced than I expected going in. Let's start with what DeLauer gets right, because there's actually quite a bit here. His explanation of glycation, that's the process where sugars react with proteins, kind of like caramelization, is solid. He correctly notes that advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, can impair insulin signaling, and this is well established in the scientific literature. His description of carnosine as a carbonyl scavenger that neutralizes AGE precursors is biochemically accurate. On creatine, he mentions emerging research on anti-inflammatory effects, and while this field is still developing, there is legitimate science suggesting creatine may have benefits beyond just muscle and strength. His glycine recommendations for sleep are particularly well-grounded. He suggests 3 grams about 90 minutes before bed, and this aligns nicely with clinical trials showing improved subjective sleep quality at exactly this dose and timing. The biochemistry pathway he describes for glutamine, where it converts to glutamate, which then becomes GABA, your calming neurotransmitter, that's textbook accurate. And his explanation of betaine as a methyl donor that helps lower homocysteine levels reflects established metabolic science. For dosing, his recommendations generally fall within researched ranges: 3 to 6 grams of taurine for exercise performance, 28 milligrams of saffron extract for sleep, 5 to 10 grams of glutamine, and the carnosine range of 500 milligrams to 1 gram for metabolic support. Now, here's where things get more complicated. When discussing taurine's exercise benefits, DeLauer states it improves time to exhaustion, VO2 max, perceived fatigue, and oxidative stress recovery. The meta-analyses do support modest improvements in time to exhaustion. That's pretty consistent. But the evidence for VO2 max improvement is weaker and more variable. Saying taurine improves all these parameters across the board overstates the consistency we actually see in the research. On serine supplementation, he claims 1 to 2 grams can lower exercise-induced inflammation. While serine is indeed a precursor to phosphatidylserine and connects to anti-inflammatory pathways, direct clinical evidence for this specific protocol is actually quite limited. The research on phosphatidylserine, that's the downstream compound, is stronger, particularly for cortisol modulation after exercise. But that's not the same as supplementing with serine itself. He also describes phosphatidylserine as calming the cell membrane and its reaction to the immune system. This captures something real. Phosphatidylserine does have immunomodulatory properties, but the mechanism is considerably more complex than membrane calming. Phosphatidylserine on the outer membrane actually serves as a signal for cellular cleanup processes, not just general calming. His claim that there's evidence showing collagen and whey protein work synergistically when combined is another area where the science is thinner than suggested. Both proteins do provide complementary amino acid profiles, collagen for connective tissue, whey for muscle, but specific synergistic effects between them aren't well documented in research. They may simply offer complementary rather than amplified benefits. When discussing saffron and sleep, he lists improvements in sleep quality, sleep onset, mood upon waking, total sleep time, and even REM and deep sleep. Saffron studies do generally show improvements in subjective sleep quality measures, but claiming improvements across all these parameters, especially the objective ones like REM and deep sleep duration may combine findings from multiple studies or overstate what any single trial demonstrated. Now for the claims that raise genuine red flags. The most significant error is a fundamental one. DeLauer states that GLUT5 is a transporter for glucose when it's in an elevated state. This is simply incorrect. GLUT5 is primarily a fructose transporter. That's well-established biochemistry. Glucose transport involves different transporters, mainly GLUT2 and GLUT4. Now, his broader point about allulose interacting with fructose transport mechanisms is valid, but the specific claim about GLUT5 handling glucose represents a basic error in transporter biology. The other claim that crosses into misleading territory is about betaine and body composition. He describes it as one of the only supplements that helps people lose fat and build muscle at the same time, even with minimal exercise and diet change. The studies showing betaine's body composition benefits typically involve structured resistance training programs. Suggesting someone could achieve body recomposition with minimal lifestyle changes significantly overstates the evidence. Betaine may support modest improvements when combined with training and nutrition, but it's not working magic independent of those factors. Similarly, his description of betaine overhauling people's body composition in 5 or 6 weeks uses language that dramatically exaggerates the modest effect sizes we actually see in the research. So what's the bottom line here? This video demonstrates something we see often in popular health content. A creator with genuinely good knowledge of biochemistry and supplement research who occasionally overreaches. About 2/3 of the claims we checked were accurate or mostly accurate. That's actually better than many supplement videos we review. The protocol recommendations, the doses, the timing, which compounds for which purposes, generally align with research literature. Where DeLauer tends to stumble is in overstating effect sizes, suggesting dramatic results where research shows modest benefits, and occasionally making mechanistic claims that don't quite hold up to scrutiny. Your key takeaways. The GLUT5 error is worth noting if you're trying to understand how allulose works. Look up the correct transporter biology. Be skeptical of claims about supplements producing dramatic body composition changes without significant diet and exercise modifications. And remember that even when the direction of an effect is correct, like taurine improving exercise performance, the magnitude is often smaller and more variable than enthusiastic descriptions suggest. The strongest recommendations here are probably the glycine for sleep, betaine for those already doing resistance training, and the general approach to creatine and magnesium. Just calibrate your expectations to match what the research actually shows, rather than the more exciting version.